Craig Jones versus Mason Fowler are going to rematch this Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern, UFC Fight Pass. Okay, but how did we get here? How did we get to this point? And there's a lot of moving parts. Back up to the first time these guys ever competed. It was Abu Dhabi Trials, point system. Mason Fowler had a takedown of which he was not awarded. Now, that is according to Mason Fowler and according to Craig Jones. So as time is ticking off, Mason is forced to try to make up for these points, goes for a takedown, shows his neck, ends up getting guillotined by Craig Jones. Either way, Craig wins that match, goes on to Abu Dhabi, sets the world on fire, and reaches the finals. So then there's a big question. Well, should have Craig even been there? Should have it been Mason? Oh, and by the way, if it was Mason, would Mason have gone as far as Craig did? Great, we'll never know. Welcome to sport. There's controversy, but Craig Jones then gets involved in no-gi submission grappling with Submission Underground. And he looks amazing. I mean, everybody stops what they're doing to take in this once-in-a-lifetime talent. And Craig really is just that. Craig has techniques that never before in my lifetime have I seen. So it's not as straightforward. It's not a positional battle in the least. It is a game of submission. The way the game is meant to be played. You could compare that to wrestling, where guys are supposed to go out there and pin one another, but a lot of them don't. They get away from it and they play the game a different way. Compared to football, where teams are supposed to get points through touchdowns, but a lot of them don't. They find other ways and they get close enough and they kick the ball in, and it's all fair play. It's just not what it was designed to do. Craig does the sport of submission as it was designed, by submitting people. Insert Mason. So Submission Underground starts to run into a big problem. Who are we going to put against Craig? And there's no shortage of guys that want that main event spot where Craig sits. There's no shortage of guys who want the airtime, or they want to be paid, or they want Dana to be watching them and supporting them. But it's another problem of there's a responsibility of who you put in there with Craig, because Craig's skill set is nothing short of vicious. I mean, it is a vicious. You are going to go to the hospital. You are going to be out many, many months. And this is if things go well. So you have to put him in there with the right, whatever it takes. No matter how big of a check you have to write to get the right, you just have to from a responsibility standpoint. So we go, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to hold an 8-man tournament. Whoever wins this tournament, we will give you $10,000 just for your effort on that night. But we will then ask you one simple question. Do you want to take on Craig Jones? You can say no. You don't have to face him. Here's your $10,000, just as we agreed on. But we will then ask you, you will be offered a chance at Craig Jones. So Mason Fowler finds out about this tournament. And he raises hell. He demands a place in this tournament. He's not asking. He's not knocking at the door. He's kicking the door in and demanding he go in the tournament. You go, who's this Mason Fowler guy? Wants Craig Jones. You know what you're asking for? As a matter of fact, I do. I've already dealt with him once. I don't know anything about these hospitals and these injuries and these long times. So I don't know anything about what you're talking about. I can deal with that guy. I've already dealt with him once. Okay. All right, hot shot. Here's your spot in the tournament. He goes through the tournament, he taps everybody out, and he calls Craig Jones out before we can even make him the offer. So we find what we were looking for. We find the guy, and we'll take you at your word, but we have now found a guy whose actions spoke louder than words that says he's ready for Craig Jones. Match finally happens, and this thing's close. This thing is very close, and this thing is very tight. And Craig is taking his general position. Craig likes to sit down and go to work from there. Look for arm drapes, look for sweeps, look for some of your traditional techniques, but he's also using that to favor and gain position himself. Mason won't let him get off the starting block because Mason won't come down to engage. Mason's standing over the top of him. Now that frustrated Craig. Fine. All the rules were followed, and you can see where Craig would be frustrated. I'll tell you this. I've been in live buildings where this has happened. And there's always a question of who's at fault. If one guy sits to a position and asks the other guy to engage, but that guy doesn't. But the person sitting down motions him in for the audience to see first. He will then win the audience over, and the audience will believe that the person who is not doing what the person who first called for is the one stalling. I've also been in live arenas where it's been reversed. One guy goes to a sitting or downed position, and the guy standing up waves that person to stand up. But if he waves him up first, the crowd then takes his side and decides the person sitting down is stalling. You decide. I can only tell you what the rules say, and the rules say for the first 5 minutes of regulation period, anything goes as long as you're not punching or kicking. Anything goes. So if you want a guy up, go grab him and pull his ass up. If you want a guy down, get off your ass and go get him and take him there. That's what the rules call for. I'll let you decide who's right or wrong. They end up in overtime. This is a chess match. Craig Jones, Mason Fowler in overtime. This is where you really start to see the skills. They are forced now to lock. They are forced now to touch. They are forced now to engage in two of the most dangerous positions in all of the sport. I mean, if you take somebody's back, that's a big problem anywhere. You do it on the streets, in a tournament, in the playground, in the octagon, this is a problem. You get a hold of somebody's arm, which is the only other position you can do, but your entire body is now locked on one limb. No matter how strong the guy is, it's nothing compared to a guy's whole body. Got his hips involved, both legs are squeezing tight, both hands can be, get involved pretty quickly, wrists, fingers, and it's tough positions. But this is what they have to do. This is what the rules call for. And you start to see some real fun. Now, to break down the match and what had happened, and Craig goes into this match, everybody knew this was going to be a close match, including Craig. Everybody respected Mason that knew Mason, including Craig. Craig knew full well, I got a tough one in front of me, but he's earned it. I'm the guy around here. I do the match. I give other people the opportunity. But the odds makers don't all know who Mason was. Mason wasn't the biggest name. Craig Jones not only had the greatest and most successful and unique skill set, Craig Jones is the biggest star in the sport. And perception is reality at all things in life, but I don't know of anything that's more obvious than combat. Hey, have you heard of this guy? No. Hey, have you heard of Craig Jones? Well, of course I have. Craig will kill that guy. That's the way it works. It's just always worked that way. So Craig goes in like a 3-1 favorite, but he ends up in a tight spot. So ultimately, the finishing sequence is Mason has Craig's back, and he transitions to what's known as a figure four around the body. So he's taking one leg, putting it in the bend of his other knee, pulling as tight as he can with Craig's body in between there, while manipulating Craig's head and neck. He was looking for a choke. Craig defended it. Well, all of a sudden, this becomes a neck crank. The neck crank isn't as relevant to the story as what I said previously, which was the figure four around the body, because the rules call for if you are in a catch, meaning you're caught. You're not beat yet, but you are now clearly on the defensive. The offensive man has found what he's looking for. You now have to work out it. That would be known as a catch. Different definitions, but I like the way I said it. Craig is in a catch because his neck is manipulated, but because of the figure four and the squeezing of it, it let out a sound. The rules call for if you make a sound while in a catch. Now that is designed and believed to be tap, ow, uncle, stop. That is what it would be designed and believed to be. It's just not what the rule says. The rule says a sound. So as Mason squeezes, it forces the air through Craig's diaphragm and out of his mouth, and Craig makes a sound. I don't know how to mimic the sound. It certainly wasn't a word. It was a sound. Oh, it was a sound of air coming out while he's in a catch. What do you do? What do you do if you're the rule maker, the referee? The guy's in a catch, his neck's going this way, he's got the other guy's hips, his body's completely entangled, and by the way, he's stuck. What do you do? Well, the answer is real obvious what you do. You do what the rule told you to do. You stop the position. Stopping the position brought a conclusion to the match. Craig Jones is the champion. Feel free to like that or not like that. I'm sharing with you what happened. But just like Craig Jones, who said, I don't want to be top dog if I haven't earned it, Mason said the same thing. You gave me the chance. I'm now the champion. But if I haven't earned, if there's a question out there, whether the right guy's holding this title, if there's a question that your air being forced through your body and making a sound in this weird time known as the pandemic where there's absolutely nobody in the room, a sound that normally would never even be heard was heard, then let's just do the damn thing again. Those guys get credit for that. You get a credit for that mentality. You get a credit for being the rightful guy. You get credit for not just taking a belt and a prize in a main event spot, getting up in the loft and pulling the ladder up behind you, but leaving the ladder down and letting all comers come on up and try to take your spot. They get credit for it. But officially, they are one apiece, and officially, there could be only one champion. And officially, this Sunday, we're going to find out who that is.